What if the government isn't hiding aliens from us, but hiding the proof that we've already spoken to them? Think about this carefully. Every civilization on Earth, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Mayans, the ancient Indians, all drew the same beings. Beings with elongated heads, flying discs, and fire from the sky. No internet, no phones, no shared culture, yet identical stories. Scientists call it coincidence. But science is supposed to be allergic to coincidence. When an experiment gives you the same result 10,000 times across 10,000 independent laboratories, you don't call it coincidence, you call it a law. So why, when 10,000 civilizations independently recorded the same visitors from the sky, do we call it mythology? Because mythology is easier to ignore than a truth that shatters everything we believe about who built this civilization, who guided it, and whether we were ever truly alone. The ancient record isn't religious fiction. It is the earliest form of scientific documentation we have, and it is screaming at us. What if NASA's own data has already confirmed non-human intelligence, and the press release was just never written? In 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio caught something that made a scientist grab his printout and write one word in red ink: wow. A 72-second signal, perfectly structured, arriving from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. A signal so mathematically clean it fit every single prediction for what an alien transmission should look like. Frequency, bandwidth, signal strength, all perfect, all matching. And then it was gone. NASA and the scientific community spent the next 47 years telling the public, we never found it again, so it probably wasn't aliens. But here is what they do not tell you. We never looked for it again with the same intensity. The funding dried up, the telescope was demolished, and classified military satellites, ones we're not allowed to know about, began intercepting radio frequencies from deep space the same year. What happened to their data? It didn't disappear, it went somewhere. And that somewhere has a security clearance higher than the President of the United States. What if the UFO phenomenon isn't a mystery at all, but a managed disclosure, drip-fed to humanity on a schedule we didn't choose? Between 2017 and 2023, the United States government did something it had never done in history. It admitted on the record, through official Pentagon statements and Senate hearings, that unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, are real, that they move at speeds no human aircraft can match, that they defy known physics, that trained Navy pilots encountered them repeatedly. Now ask yourself, why now? After 70 years of calling witnesses lunatics, after decades of destroyed careers and ridicule campaigns, why did the most secretive military organization on Earth suddenly decide to talk? Because they didn't decide voluntarily. The technology gap between what these objects do and what we can build became impossible to explain away. The pilots had gun camera footage, the radar operators had corroborating data, the satellite imagery existed. They couldn't suppress all of it anymore. So they didn't suppress it, they framed it. They called it a threat. They turned a revelation into a defense budget conversation. And the most shocking part? The world moved on in 48 hours. Mission accomplished. What if the moon isn't just a rock, but the single greatest piece of evidence for engineered intelligence in our solar system? Here is what the physics tells us, and the physics does not lie. The moon is exactly the right size to produce a perfect solar eclipse. Not approximately right, not close enough, exactly right. The probability of a natural satellite being the precise angular diameter of the Sun from its host planet's surface is so astronomically small that mathematicians have stopped trying to calculate it comfortably. Then consider this. The moon does not rotate relative to Earth. In the entire solar system, Of all the moons orbiting all the planets, ours alone shows only one face to its planet with such precision that it appears locked. And when Apollo astronauts conducted seismic experiments and struck the lunar surface, NASA's own instruments recorded that the moon rang like a hollow bell for over an hour. A solid rock does not ring. A hollow structure does. 3 separate anomalies, each individually explainable. Together, they form a pattern, and patterns in science are not ignored. They are investigated. Unless someone doesn't want the investigation to reach its conclusion. What if the creatures we call aliens have never left, because they never arrived from somewhere else? They've been here the entire time. The deep ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface. We have mapped less than 20% of it. The pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is so extreme that our best submarines cannot survive it. And yet, sonar operators on military submarines have been filing reports for decades of objects moving beneath the ocean at impossible speeds, executing right-angled turns, diving to depths that should crush any known vessel. The UAP phenomenon doesn't just happen in the sky, it happens in the water. These objects, now officially called unidentified submerged objects by naval intelligence, enter and exit the ocean without a splash, without a pressure wave, without any thermal signature. If an intelligence has been living in Earth's oceans for longer than we have been a species, if they were here before us, then the entire framework of the alien question collapses. They are not visitors. We are the newcomers. And that possibility terrifies every power structure on this planet in ways that no geopolitical threat ever could. What if the reason disclosure hasn't happened isn't fear of panic, but fear of accountability? This is the one they never discuss. The official reason governments give for suppressing UFO information is that the public would panic. Mass hysteria, social collapse. But study every actual case of staged or accidental partial disclosure. The Pentagon UAP videos, the Chilean government's official UAP acknowledgement, the French JPAN files. And what happened? Nothing. People watched the news for 2 days and went back to their lives. No panic, no collapse. So the public panic argument is not a reason. It is a cover story. The real reason is this. If non-human intelligence exists and has been visiting Earth, then every government, every military, every intelligence agency that has spent decades calling witnesses liars, that destroyed careers and fabricated explanations, that spent trillions on defense programs supposedly designed to protect us from threats they already knew were not hostile, every single one of them becomes criminally, historically, catastrophically accountable. The cover-up isn't about protecting you from the truth. It is about protecting them from you. What if everything you were taught about humanity's place in the universe was not discovered, but decided? Decided by a small group of people who concluded decades ago that you could not handle the answer. I want to talk to you today not about conspiracy theories. I want to talk to you about something far more dangerous. Data. Because data doesn't care about your comfort. Data doesn't care about your government's reputation. Data doesn't care about what you were taught in school. Data simply is. And the data, the actual documented, peer-reviewed, government-admitted data, points in a direction that every official institution on this planet has spent 70 years desperately trying to make you look away from. Every civilization on Earth, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Mayans, the ancient Indians, all drew the same beings. Beings with elongated heads, flying discs, and fire from the sky. No internet, no phones, no shared culture, yet identical stories. Scientists call it coincidence. But science is supposed to be allergic to coincidence. When an experiment gives you the same result 10,000 times across 10,000 independent laboratories, you don't call it coincidence, you call it a law. So when 10,000 civilizations independently recorded the same visitors from the sky, why do we call it mythology? Because mythology is easier to ignore than a truth that shatters everything we believe about who built this civilization and whether we were ever truly alone. In 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope caught a 72-second signal, perfectly structured, arriving from deep space. A signal so mathematically clean, it fit every single prediction for what an extraterrestrial transmission should look like. A scientist grabbed the printout and wrote one word: wow. NASA's response? We never found it again, so it probably wasn't aliens. But here is what they don't tell you. They never looked for it again with the same intensity. The telescope was demolished, and classified satellites began intercepting deep space frequencies the same year. That data didn't disappear. It went somewhere with a security clearance higher than the President of the United States. Between 2017 and 2023, the Pentagon did something unprecedented. It admitted, officially, that unidentified aerial phenomena are real, that they move at speeds no human aircraft can match, that they defy known physics. After 70 years of ridiculing witnesses and destroying careers, why now? Because the evidence became impossible to suppress. Pilots had gun camera footage, radar operators had corroborating data, satellite imagery existed. So the government didn't suppress it, they framed it. They called it a threat. They turned a potential revelation into a defense budget conversation. And the world moved on in 48 hours, exactly as planned. Then there is the moon. The moon is exactly the right size to produce a perfect solar eclipse. Not approximately right, exactly right. The mathematical probability of this occurring naturally is so small that serious physicists have quietly stopped dismissing the question. The moon does not rotate relative to Earth, an anomaly unique in our solar system. And when Apollo astronauts conducted seismic experiments, NASA's own instruments recorded that the moon rang like a hollow bell for over an hour. A solid rock does not ring. A hollow structure does. 3 anomalies, each individually explainable, together they form a pattern that has never been seriously investigated. Because someone decided the investigation should not reach its conclusion. And perhaps the most staggering possibility of all, what if these intelligences have never left because they were never visitors? The deep ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface. We have explored less than 20% of it. Naval intelligence has filed reports for decades of objects moving beneath the ocean at impossible speeds, diving to depths that should crush any known vessel, entering and exiting the water without a trace. These unidentified submerged objects don't behave like visitors. They behave like residents. If an intelligence has existed in Earth's oceans longer than we have been a species, then the entire question is inverted. They are not the newcomers, we are. And that possibility threatens every power structure on this planet in ways no enemy nation ever could. So why hasn't any government simply told the truth? They will tell you it's to prevent public panic. But every partial disclosure in history, the Pentagon videos, the French government files, the Chilean acknowledgements, produced no panic whatsoever. People watched for 2 days and moved on. So public panic is not the reason. The reason is accountability. If non-human intelligence is real and has been monitored and known, then every government that called witnesses liars, that spent trillions on defense programs against threats they knew were not hostile, that suppressed evidence for 7 decades, becomes accountable. The cover-up was never about protecting you from the truth. It was about protecting them from you. The universe is under no obligation to be simple. It is under no obligation to be comfortable. It is under no obligation to conform to the boundaries of what any government, any institution, or any textbook decided you were ready to know. The only honest position a thinking person can hold when faced with the evidence we have discussed today is not certainty, but curiosity. Fierce, unrelenting, unapologetic curiosity. The moment you stop asking questions because the answers make powerful people uncomfortable, that is the moment you stop thinking and start being managed. The truth about what exists in this universe, about who shares this planet with us, about what has been hidden from public record for generations, that truth belongs to everyone. Not to agencies, not to budgets, not to carefully worded press releases. To everyone. The sky has never been empty. The question was always whether we were brave enough to look up and demand an honest answer. What if the most classified document in human history isn't about nuclear weapons, isn't about a foreign enemy, isn't about economic collapse, but about a single, simple, terrifying confirmation that we are not alone, and we have never been alone? What if, right now, in a facility with no public address, no Wikipedia page, and no oversight committee that reports to anyone you've ever elected, there are people whose entire job is to make sure you never ask that question out loud? What if the pilots weren't crazy? What if the ancient carvings weren't symbolic? What if the signals from deep space weren't interference? What if the government didn't accidentally stumble onto the truth, but has been managing it since before your parents were born? I am not here to give you answers wrapped in comfort. I am here to do something far more dangerous. I am going to show you the data. And once you see it, you will understand why the most powerful organizations on Earth have spent decades making sure you never did. Stay with me, because what comes next doesn't just change how you see the sky. It changes how you see everything.